Hey everybody, this is Mike with the One Stop Co-op Shop, and today I'm reviewing Wraith and the Giants, the latest from Renegade's solo hero series, and disclaimer that I got a review copy of this one. Wraith and the Giants is clearly heavily inspired by Shadow of the Colossus, and maybe also Leviathan Wilds that came earlier. In the game, you control a Wraith, a giant hunter at one of three ages, fighting against one of four giants, traversing up their board, striking them in their weak points, and trying to defeat them before they destroy your village. You play cards from your Wraith's unique deck, and you build up icons in rows so that as you play later cards, they get stronger and stronger, while trying to hit specific weak points on the giant as they crop up and also dodge their attacks in response to your actions. So let's discuss 5 key things to know about Wraith and the Giants. So first, my number 5, the least important of my points to know about the game, is the variety of the Wraiths you control. This is generally a pro. Each one has their own unique deck, and they add more complexity as you go. The most interesting being the Elder Wraith, who has these spells they can cast if they're in particular areas of the giant board. So it is fun to try these different ones out. It does ease you into the game well, although I will say there's not much point in playing the young warlock ever again after you've beaten the game with them, because I do find it pretty easy, and I like to go to the adult warlock and the elder warlock pretty quickly. But still a cool mix of characters, and again, I love the unique decks for each one. Next, at number 4 is the giant variety, and this is a mix for my taste. So first of all, they look beautiful. These are lovely boards for each one, and they each have a different element to kind of distinguish themselves. And like the Wraiths, they each have their own unique cards, and you can even add this dangerous foothold variant that gives them a little special effect when you step on certain parts of their body. All of that is good, but on the negative side, they aren't really that different from each other. Like, the water giant doesn't feel watery, the earth giant doesn't feel earthy, they don't have any unique mechanics besides some rare powers that trigger in their hand. Like, yes, the fire giant will hurt you more often, but I don't know. There's nothing much in here that made me think of thematic things, and especially with the games that are sort of similar to this, Shadow of the Colossus and Leviathan Wilds, priding themselves on huge differences in like core mechanics in the different characters, this feels like a little bit of a letdown. My next point for number 3 is the traversal and how the giant actions in your movement work together, and this is a mix as well. So first of all, your different actions will let you move up, move down very quickly, or you can leap across different areas. And that variety of movement, and that movement sometimes being forced, can be pretty interesting. And then on top of that, probably the best part of the movement and the giant stuff is that you have changing goals of where to go. Because you have this row of giant cards, and you'll know which one is about to attack you and where you don't want to be, like in this case in the D or E area. And you'll also be able to see all the possible weak points you could strike. So you're constantly going to have a reason to move around, to get to different spots, to avoid certain attacks. And something that keeps things extra dangerous, although potentially annoying for people, is that there's a random element, because each round you flip a new action card, and if the icon on that card matches the icons on other cards, those other cards trigger. So you have to not just be aware of the current card that's going to attack you, but all the other possible ones, and bad luck might really bite you if you just flip the wrong card at the wrong time. But all that cool stuff being said, I've often found in the game that I'll just be sitting on a weak spot, see that nothing is coming that could hit me for a little while, and be able to smash it multiple turns in a row. So the movement is cool, but not always exciting. My number 2 point, which is a mix for my taste as well, is the action card placement and the action rows. So how the core gameplay works is you have 5 cards in your hand at a time, and you play first one to the top row and then one to the bottom, and you resolve the actions on the card and special abilities in whatever order you want for each card. And then, as I mentioned in the intro, you're going to be building up icons as you go. So this is pretty cool. You get to really think about which cards you want to go in which rows, whether a card's current action is valuable enough that you want to play it in a row where its icons aren't really going to build up into good combos. And that, combined with moving on the giant, knowing where the enemies are, is really good. Also, they let you take these fearless actions where you hurt yourself to get some free movement or free attacks. So those give you a lot of flexibility to build the right card combos. But that being said, I do find that the scaling is a little bit off, because you are very quickly doing an insane amount of damage if you build up your card rows intelligently. And that has led to me feeling that I often kind of pursue the same sort of strategy. You know, I know that like my big melee attacks are going to use hands. I know my big bow attacks are going to use brain and eyes. So I just kind of build rows that have those and then destroy the giant with them. But still, the turn-to-turn decisions are pretty cool, pretty fun, probably the best part of the game, honestly. But sadly, my number 1 point, the one I think is most important for people to know about the game, is a full con for my taste, and that's my perception, at least, of the game's balance, and I don't think it's very good. So to defeat each giant, you can either do a ton of wounds to them from this wound pool, or you can fully defeat, put the amount of damage indicated on 3 or 4 of their cards based on their scar limit to defeat them immediately. And if you watch my playthrough that came out pretty recently, you'll see that every battle I've had has ended by scar, and that's continued to be the case as I played the game more. That has been the case even on the highest difficulty possible, the Elder Wraith versus the Fire Giant. I have never gone the distance. The game has never lasted as long as it kind of feels like it should, because I always just kill them with scars pretty quickly. There's also some other awkward parts for the Elder and Adult Warlock. There are these special abilities you can trigger by pulling wounds off of them as you hurt the giant. And one in particular, Force Back, lets you basically skip the next giant turn if you can do 7 wounds. And I hate to admit it, but I found it pretty easy to stun lock the giants, where I'm doing 7 damage or so every single round, and they just don't go until they die, which again just leads to kind of an anticlimactic, over too fast game. Now, maybe I'm playing something wrong. Maybe I'm missing something. I did reach out to one of the developers of the game, and it seemed like I was playing everything right. But there is a potential silver lining. If you want to try this, I have sort of the 2 changes I would implement in the game to make it tough enough. First of all, I would take away winning by scars. It's still valuable to damage a card until it's scarred fully, because then it won't trigger extra attacks, and you're just putting a ton of damage out of the giant's pool on it. So I don't think there's anything wrong with taking away the scar limit for defeat and just kind of always having to destroy the giant's entire pool to make the game last longer. And then also I would just entirely remove Force Back as an option, because I think skipping the giant's turn and just getting to go again and again and again does not lead to the game being fun and challenging. So overall, if like me, you're a big fan of Shadow of the Colossus or Leviathan Wilds, Wraith and the Giants might be up your alley. But again, I have major concerns about the balance, so unless you're willing to kind of house rule and try out different variants like the ones I suggested in the video, I'm not sure if this one is going to call to mind those games. And even if the balance is fixed, it doesn't really have the variety in Giants that makes this whole concept as exciting as it should be. So yeah, at the moment, it's kind of hard for me to recommend this one. Sorry to have a more negative review, but it's just my honest opinion. But hey, if you want to see the game in action and decide for yourself, although it is against easier Giants with easier Wraiths, so it's not going to show like the toughest the game can be, go watch the playthrough I had recently on the channel. Thanks for watching, everybody. Good gaming, and I'll see you at the next stop.